Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is. Richard is away again, so good times. Whatever time it is, wherever you are listening. Joining me as always, Mr. Chris Cute,
Hello.
returning with his evil eye, Mr. Average Joe.
You're right, Samuel.
Just a quick reminder, today's podcast is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, the Woodturner's abrasive paste. Our good friend Chad over at Mancrafting, who makes those awesome powder-coated Yeti mugs. Pound from Highland boxes with our amazing hybrid resin blanks. Steve Nealon, who sorts out our web page and takes all my credit. For more information on our sponsors, go to maxinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors. So is there any questions, Chris?
We have tons of questions.
No doubt. Andy's put his 2 cents in.
Oh, Andy's put in his 25 cents, I think, basically. So we've got plenty of questions from the inquisitive one this week. So Andy, thank you once again, my friend. Appreciate it. First of all, I want to give credit where credit is due. The topic for today's show is actually an inspiration from Joe. Joe actually is the one who gave us the idea to do this, because I don't think we've ever really done one with this angle before. And it was design process. And I think there was a number of things that that Joe, you actually had listed as, things that would be kind of interesting to answer and ask. And, when it comes to design, people designing their own stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, do you start with a finished piece and work off of that? Do you design mostly to suit the materials you have? Or do you design to fit either the function or the space that we have? There's just so many angles that we can take this from. So, Joe, I don't know. I mean, this is your topic. I'll let you start. I mean, what do you want to where do you want to begin, my friend? Because I'm kind of lost.
I'm interested to actually see what a lot of people in the chat kind of their angle is with everything to do with design, because I know that myself, when I very first started making stuff, apart from the bare necessities of having an idea of what I wanted to make, design didn't really come into anything, even though I'd always got an interest in product design and along those routes. But as I got more confident in what I was making, I could then turn more of my attention onto the design process, because I knew if I come up with a design first, I already know how to make it. So I didn't have to keep that in mind as much. But I was interested as well with the different kind of genres. Obviously, we kind of look at all different areas of making stuff. Of dressmakers making patterns and thinking about fit and finish, and then the likes of woodworking. I was thinking, such as with turners, you will have turners that will go out and they'll have an exact idea of exactly what they want to make, and they'll make it. But I hear more turners in particular will just chuck up a block of wood, start turning it, have a rough idea, and then just see how the wood kind of takes. So I don't know what your two approaches. If you go from a full set of plans that you've already designed out and this is what I'm doing, I'm not deviating from it, or do you just rock up in the workshop and what have I got lying around, let's just make it?
Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, especially now with let's start with scroll saw. Scroll saw, very plain and simple. I'll rock up into the workshop with a piece of wood. It's got a pattern on it. I'll put the drill the hole, feed the blade, cut exactly where it is on that pattern. Take the pattern off. Done. There is no deviation from that pattern. If there is, then I've messed up what I'm going to make. Now, turning on the other hand is completely different. Like Joe was saying, you chuck up a piece of wood. I kind of have a rough idea of where it's going to go. However, during that turning process, it can easily turn on a dime. You don't know if underneath, somewhere deep in that wood, there can be a crack, there can be a knot, there can be something that could quite easily change your plans, where you may need to get a new piece of wood. You may even just need to change the design somehow. It could be the wood giving you the middle finger, but however you may see it. But yeah, wood turning is one of them ones. It's like we were saying before we went live. Wood turning is complete opposite to scroll sawing. Well, you haven't really got it's hard to have a rough idea, not a rough idea, like a finished idea, because you don't know how the wood's going to let you treat it, unless you're Cole Jacobson and you kind of you tell the wood what it's going to be.
The wood gets into place.
So, yeah. So I mean, I'll give you a prime example, really, when it comes to the wood. So I put out a video a couple of weeks ago, and I was turning a bedpost. And in that bedpost, I turned it down, and under there, all of a sudden revealed a massive, massive hole. And no word of a lie, it's not like I could put a little bit of shaving in it. I literally packed it with great chunks of sawdust.
Right.
Now, I could probably fit up to probably my second knuckle. That's how deep that hole was. Now,
wow.
I mean, you got to remember that was probably holding up a bed.
Well, I'm just especially much what we do as woodworkers is we design around our mistakes sometimes. I mean, this is the ongoing process, and so even though it wasn't your mistake that wood had a hole in it that deep, did you start over with a different piece of wood, or did you try to fix that hole?
No. So in this particular case, I actually tried fixing it.
Okay.
I did fix it. So I fixed it with CA glue and sawdust. So if something, I mean, again with wood tone, you can fix it. People use powders, inlays, like sands. They use coffee grounds. They use all sorts of inlays, resins, all sorts of stuff. So you can still keep the shape that you want. There's just different mediums that makes it a different style of bowl, maybe. Yeah. So. Yeah,
I mean,
it ended up being a hybrid of some sorts.
Well, we've already discussed two different types of design because, Joe, what you initially described to me, and correct me if I was wrong, the way I took it is when you talked about design, you were talking about design as how do I make this piece I know how to make? How do I make it look sexy?
That's the thought, because I think we're in a genre of making things where everything has pretty much been done. So where you stand apart, where you make it is purely all down to the design. I may be wrong, but I don't know whether anybody's going to come up with a brand new type of furniture. Everyone's made tables, everyone made chairs. But when it comes down to your table or your chair, how much thought do you actually put into how it's going to look and how it's going to finish versus it performing its function and just, well, I know how to do mortise and tenon, so I'll do mortise and tenon on the legs and I'll whack a top. Like, would you actually take the time to maybe look at other samples and maybe even other furniture that you can steal design cues from to put onto the table? Mainly because I've been doing more and more design myself recently, and I'm looking at like products and projects outside of the initial design to basically steal that inspiration. I don't know whether other people do that a lot.
Well, you're talking about what we started talking about. It was one of the illustrations that you had actually offered to us about, and it was, do you start with a finished piece, something that's already there? Do you start with that and then move on? Because let's be honest. I mean, if you're building an Adirondack chair, it's really not that hard and it's not that sexy. But if you're going to make one for yourself and you kind of want to make it have its own voice in that world, then you end up doing design work to it that will make it stand out. And that's kind of what you're talking about. Am I wrong?
No, that's definitely because, like you say, especially with the likes of an Adirondack chair, its design is what makes it that chair. Its construction is what makes it that chair. So deviating too much makes it something completely
else.
Different. But design can even just break down to obviously designing it to fit you, your physical size to make it comfortable. Do you want to add a cup holder? Do you want to add a place for your phone, a charger? Just taking it that step further. So anybody who does see that finished piece or see a project video or pictures, it's not just another Adirondack chair. It's an Adirondack chair, but it's got that twist on it that makes it yours.
whether it's decoration or the function. And Jamie, you talked about design, kind of sort of on the fly, where you have to kind of design as you go, especially with the lathe. So there's that's only two aspects that we could look at from design, because there's many more. And I'll briefly step on my soapbox and then step off really quickly too, because I'm not, by no means am I going to try to tell you that I'm an expert in design, because I'm not. I have designed a lot of things. Most of the things I build, I design myself, but they're not really that extraordinary. Okay, I'll be honest with myself here. But design to me, and if I'm on the wrong path here, you guys let me know. Design to me is the artistic approach you take to whatever you're making. And it doesn't matter, even if it's for function. There is an artistic approach that you have to put into that piece in order to make it fit and work for that function. Now, whether it's for form, now there are a lot of projects that I've seen that I look at and I go, that's just freaking nuts. I would never do that because it's useless. But it wasn't made to be useful. It was made to be looked at. It was, so that's that's the form. The function is making sure the drawer opens and closes smoothly, and fits into the space. And some incorporate both, where form and function become. We were talking about this earlier today, Joe, and that the most recent example, and I said I was going to bring this up, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's a perfect example of form and function. Was, if you've seen the office table that Mark Spagnuolo built for his wife, that has a mixture of both form and function, because there are some not normal things about that build that he did, but a very functional desk for his wife to work at. So there's a blending of the two. And with that, let's just go ahead and get our qualifications out there. Andy Pugh wants to know, and Joe, this is directed at you, and then Jamie and I can follow up. He's interested to know if Joe or any of us has had any formal training in design, or are we purely self-taught?
I haven't got any professional experience. When I was at secondary school, which is like high school in America, I took product design for my GCSE in the hopes that I would learn product design. And it turned out that it was making cushions. So I didn't get exactly what I wanted to get from that course. So I haven't got a professional background in design. I haven't been taught form and function, and it was literally rock up, design what you want on the front of your cushion, here's how to sew it, and then that was that course. So no, nothing that's professional.
Jamie, have you taken any kind of design class?
I've not. I only done like design and tech at school. I mean, but that was years ago, probably before Joe was even born. But no, I haven't done any of that kind of stuff. The only things that I can remember doing as of late was I've made some plans for Chris, and that was under anesthetic, and he did make it.
I did make it. I actually did make it, just because I thought that.
At least they were readable, barely.
Well, I kind of figured it out. But this is my answer to this question. Goes back to what I mentioned earlier to Joe. Is that design is kind of an art, and so being formally trained in design will teach you the norms, the acceptable norms in design. And being someone who is not normal and who doesn't like to follow a path of any sort, I look at it more as art. And so I've never been trained in design, but you know what? I frankly don't know if I ever want to be, because design, especially for yourself, if you're doing it as a living, it matters what the general public thinks. If you're doing it for yourself, it doesn't matter. Does it look good to me? Is what the important thing is there. Or if I'm doing it for my wife or my son, do they appreciate the way I'm making this? So it's more of the art thing. I don't really want to be taught the norms. I would rather do something that is out without even knowing it, because I've never been taught, without even knowing it, that is outside the norm. I find that more interesting and more fun. Hey, that's just me. I don't know if you guys concur or.
The Beard times 16 has just written something, and I kind of agree with this. He says it helps to be a bit crazy to be an artist. The only two kind of real artists that I know in the community when it comes to making, there's obviously going to be more than that, but I'm going to name two that I know of, is Andy Berkey and Andy Hill, and they really are crazy.
Yeah, they are. They're both friggin' nuts. But it gets down to the nuts and bolts. Like, I mean, there are designers out there that will say, this is how you have to decorate your mantle over the fireplace. One large piece in the middle, two smaller ones next to it, and then two pieces that aren't as large as the one in the middle, but are taller than the ones next to it. And then you have a very balanced looking fireplace. But if I don't like that, I don't like that. It's like, I'm going to design it the way I want to see it. It's like, I'm not going to follow a design protocol. And I know people get really anal about that, and I apologize if I've pissed anybody off. But go ahead.
I think stuff like that can be really helpful, though, even if it's not something that you find attractive or appealing yourself. I do think it's useful to know, such as like, I think if I got the name wrong, like the Fibonacci curve and like the ratios of things like the golden ratio and things like that, because it's used in quite a lot of stuff, and it's the fact that you could be really stuck on a proportions of things, and you know kind of what you want, but it just doesn't look right, and you don't know why it doesn't look right. And then just looking a little bit more into stuff like that, so such as say with the mantelpiece, so you gave that example, you're lining up your ornaments and your vases and stuff,
right,
and it just doesn't come together. Having that little bit of, oh well, odd numbers work best, and like you say, the spacing of the heights and everything, give it a try. Again, it might not look right to you, but that might trigger what does look right to you because you've got that little bit of a background. You could also argue that knowing what the norm is would help you to do the opposite to what the norm is. If you wanted to go down the crazy route. So it's like typically you want a 2-to-1 ratio if you're doing a dining table or whatever. And it's like, well, no, I'm going to do it different then. See if it turns out.
Well, no, knowledge is. I'm not going to say that knowledge isn't obviously is worthwhile, but I think that people get invested in a certain type of knowledge and won't deviate from it. And I'm just not that kind of person. It's like, I appreciate knowing things, of course. I just don't want to, pick up, I don't consider it the Bible and how things need to work. It's like, no, I think there's room to grow here. All right.
Would you ever go in terms of a meaning behind a design? Do you think you'd ever touch that far into the design process?
It would depend. It would have to be for me. I mean, I'll speak in the Jamie answer, but I'll speak in the. It would have to be an emotional piece for me. Either the emotion behind building it, whether it was happy, sadness, or complicity. I would take the emotion and use that in the design, because that comes from the heart. And and like it kind of reinforces my talk about what I was saying about design. I consider it art, and so it's like your heart speaks to you. This is what this piece will fit that mood or that feeling I have right now, and so that's how I will do it. But there are other people who will do it differently. I mean, there are standardizations for everything. I just don't happen to like them. That's all. I'm kind of a rebel without a cause. Jamie?
Yeah. So yeah, going back to the golden ratio, Wayne the Woodtime I put into the chat.
I take it you have no opinion. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was actually just replying to a message I had on Facebook, but I'm going to mention the golden ratio that is mentioned used in wood turning, because Wayne the Woodturner put it in there, and it's the golden ratio. Golden ratio is 1 of 1.618 is a perfect ratio. So yeah, there you
go. Okay.
There you go. You can carry on now. I was completely zoned out then. I was replying.
All right. So all three of us that are here today are relatively what Andy would consider self-taught. So
amateurs.
Yeah. Well, amateurs. Yeah, totally. Amateurs.
Totally.
None of us have had any formal training. So I guess self-taught. We'll go with self-taught, Andy. I don't know if there's a better adjective, then please, chime in. But since we are that, did we go about developing those skills that we have, limited as they may be? How did we go about developing those skills, that knowledge, that kind of understanding? Is it just a matter of experience with you guys, or is it just a matter of, this works, this doesn't? I mean, Joe?
I think the experience and practice, like anything else, will always play the biggest part, because until you actually try something, you'll never get a proper understanding of something. But with me, how I think that I learned what I know, very little of what I know, was kind of subliminal. Because when I was really young, I used to always watch how it's made on the Discovery Channel, and it's
Mm.
literally just they'll make anything and everything like factory processes. So it could be making a pair of trainers or making a toothbrush or something like that.
Right.
And you end
Yeah.
up, it's fascinating because you see all the machinery and how it works, but you pick up little things. So how they adhere the soles to the shoes sticks with you. Why they use a certain type of foam for comfort and a different one for robustness sticks with you, and you start to look at the world differently. Well, I do anyway. And I tend to question everything. So I'll look at something that's as simple as a USB thumb drive. I'm looking on my desk. And the design behind that, somebody had to sit down and design that. So why did they design it the way that they did? So I find that questioning things, however simple as they may seem, really helps for me to apply it to what I then want to do. And I've done that throughout what I've done, and it has helped. So that's how I've kind of taught myself, apart from the actual go out and make something.
Well, I don't want to blow sunshine up your
Mm.
butt, Joe, because you know me better than that, and frankly, my friend, I would never do that. But I will give you, I'll give you this much today, and you are, if you don't mind me humbly saying, you're an extremely creative individual. I've seen you do things that are not the norm, but come out looking
Mhm.
fantastic. I mean, even down to, gosh, Joe, I think this might have been 3 years ago. You did a video on making coasters where you put copper nails in, and then you
Wow.
sanded it flush, and they each individual one had a different pattern to it. I mean, it was extremely creative for you to do that. And I've actually seen somebody repeat that today. I saw somebody post something on Facebook today that kind of repeated that same process. Only they were doing picture frames, and you had done coasters. And I mean, down to where you use the I don't know what they were. They were you were in. Maybe you still are. You were into some sort of cola drink or something, and you made
Yeah.
wine glasses out of those damn things. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is a tough question, and I always dread asking it because I know what the answer is going to be. I don't know. I just thought of it. But where do you come up with those ideas? Is it just something that kind of clicks in your brain and go, "I'll give this a go," and you just kind of give it a go, and then if it turns out great, then great. If it doesn't, then boom, in the bin it goes. I mean, how do you do that?
Well, the coasters, I can't really say it was an idea, because there's the brand of tool, which is Evolution Power Tools. Their saw will cut wood and metal.
Right. Oh, I
So
remember.
they
Right. Yeah.
always give a
Right.
demo of a 2x4 with a bunch of nails in the end, just chopping it to show, look what our saw can do. And I saw the end of the 2x4, and there's all these shiny, smooth, like dots in it. And I first thought I'd love to do an art piece to do a constellation. So I like to do Sagittarius or Capricorn, that kind of thing. And I was like, well, it'd have to be a big piece, and it would take a lot through the table saw and whatever. And I thought, I'll just make some coasters instead, some smaller ones, just a random pattern. That was literally it. So there wasn't any design behind it. There wasn't, I wouldn't even call it an idea. Whereas the Zeo glass, so they're using the glass bottle to make a champagne flute. That was purely because the glass bottles are a really nice design. They've got like a twisted neck, and I couldn't bring myself to
Yeah.
throw them away. So I was forcing myself, what can I make from them? I was thinking, should I make a lamp, like a lava lamp or something? And I was like, well, it's only the top part that's interesting. The bottom's just plain. So if I could cut that off, what could I do with it? And it's like, well, if the lid's on, it's a cup, and so I'll make a base for it, and then that was that. So it does generally tend to be like a necessity in a way of, I don't want to throw this away, so what can I do with it? Force myself to come up with something. But I used to keep
Yeah.
all kinds of bottles if they're interesting, because glass bottles are getting like rarer and rarer. So
Right.
I'll chuck them
So-
away.
So it kind of helps to be a
Yeah.
cheapskate.
It does.
It's kind of sounding like Sophie. I don't want to throw it away.
Well, I mean,
No,
Make
but
something
it
from it.
really is. You
Make
know
it
what?
Joe.
To like,
You know what? I am
Make
making
it
fun of
Joe.
no one.
That's a t-shirt.
That's a t-shirt. I am absolutely, that's a t-shirt. I am making fun of nobody who has that mentality, because I am the worst at that. It's like, you got a cut off from a piece you're making going, that's kind of pretty. I can't, I'll save that, and then you wind up with all these things that you've saved, and you go, what the hell am I going to do with this? And then you end up coming up with crazy ideas.
Yeah.
Jamie, I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask you the same question anyway. How did you go about developing your? Let's just talk about the lathe work then, since scroll saw is all pattern work, and lathe work is more kind of, I would assume, to be more freestyle. Where did you come up with your skills and knowledge, and how did you come about?
Honestly, just through years of watching YouTube and practicing and things like that. I've never taken classes or anything like that. But honestly, when it comes to carbides, and there's obviously that big carbide traditional thing, blah blah blah.
Yeah, whatever. That's
whatever thing. You don't really need lessons when it comes to carbide. There's obviously a very, very minute learning curve when it comes to carbides, but carbides are kind of a buy and go kind of tool. If you get your lathe and get your tool, you within a week, within a couple of days, you're turning. As long as you're not stupid, you could be turning with a lathe the same day. Like I say, as long as you're not stupid. So it's a case of I've watched a few YouTube videos and I've just continuously watched YouTube videos. Now I've got some gouges and all that kind of stuff. That's going to take a little bit longer for me to learn. I mean, I've picked it up quite quick, I would say. So I've already made a few bowls already from start to finish, but I still need a few more lessons because there's a couple of tools I'm still not good with. I'm still not great with the spindle gouge, but I mean, I'm obviously going to get there in the end. But
I mean, you throw a piece of wood on the lathe, and you have an idea that maybe I want to make this into a platter, I want to make this into a bowl, or maybe I want to turn a goblet, or whatever the case may be. But the form of that isn't known to you until you actually put chisel to wood. I mean, you know what you want to do, but you don't really know how it's going to look, and that's the design process. I mean, that's where you're kind of designing it.
Yeah, so a lot of the time, because a lot of the blanks that I get when I get them from Yandles, they're covered in wax, which is obviously to keep them from something from warping and cracking and etc. So until I've taken off that first layer of wax, I don't know what the grain's like underneath or anything like that. And if all of a sudden you see a real nice bit of grain, you don't want to get rid of that.
Right.
So a lot of the time I try and work around what the grain looks like and all that kind of stuff.
Keep the pretty stuff in the piece, right?
Trying to keep the pretty stuff because you obviously don't want to get rid of that. So often a lot of the stuff that I make revolves around the wood and what it looks like. Sometimes I'll make a bowl if it's just a plain bit of wood. Sometimes it'll revolve around whether I'm going to color it or not. Sometimes I'll just make it for the sheer fact of right, I want to make a hollow form. Or
let me ask you a question. Have you ever made something that you had no intention of coloring, but then ended up going, this needs color?
Yes, the splatter bowl that I made, I actually gave it to Wayne the wood turner. That was just going to be just a plain platter, and then I just decided I'm going to wax some color on it and just thought I'm going to have some fun with some of I think it's Martin's colors. Was it Martin's? No, Crimson colors. I think I used, and I just decided that I wasn't just going to do some fancy color. I was just going to dip a brush in the bottle and just go.
Well, somebody on the chat earlier had said this, and the chat has gone by very fast, so I forget. And you take credit for yourself because the person says, "Isn't design just basically us having fun?"
I guess it could be, yeah.
I guess, and so the answer to that is, in some cases, yes, but in some cases, probably not. I mean, we have to look at this from two different angles, I think, guys, in order to get it right, because there's no universal thing here. Is if you're doing it for a living, you have to appeal to mass appeal. If you're doing it like I am, Jamie is, and I guess Joe, it's more of a hobbyist, kind of just doing what you want to do, and you're willing to be creative in that respect. There's a different focus on what you're doing and how you're going to go about making it or designing it or things of that nature. So, I mean, because there are some things I've seen that would just never freaking sell if they became, somebody put them on Amazon or whatever. But I think they're really freaking cool, and I wouldn't mind having one or making one myself. But you just know that it's never going to wind up in your local furniture store for sale. It's just one of those things that you just like, oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Unless it's in London.
Well,
They'll
maybe
sell
in
anything
London.
in London.
They buy some crazy stuff in London.
Crazier the better.
There's some guy in London that was I can't remember where my dad said he saw it, but he was selling slimline pens for like £50 each.
Well, hey, you know what? If he gets it, power to him. But
yeah.
Anybody with half a freaking nut would go, no.
Yeah.
Okay. Dale says he loves thinking, but he hates working.
Well, think about working then.
So he thinks about things before he tries to make it, just to cut down on the just to cut down on the physical effort, and that can be a conundrum there, Mr. Dale. And I want to get into that right now because it's off the topic. Can you guys recommend a path for others to take to perhaps improve their own knowledge, skills, understanding of design? Is there something you guys would recommend to people that would benefit them? If it's kind of like Berkey, with see more, make better. It's like the more you see, the better you make. Do you guys have a see more, make better for design? Is there something you would recommend?
Yeah, take up scroll sawing.
Oh, shut up, Jamie.
You'd apply the same thing. The more that you see, the more examples that you see of a certain piece, the more that it'll influence you and that you'll learn. But I do really think that questioning everything does really help. And I've already mentioned this. But just looking random things around your everyday life and just think someone's had to design that. Perhaps even 10 or 20 people have had a hand in designing one simple product. And every aspect of it is for a specific reason, whether it's form or whether it's function, and breaking it down into, well, why did they do that? Why did they do this? Why didn't they do this? So I think a good exercise for you to do would be to pick something random that's in the room when you're having like a creative rut or you just want to try and improve your design skills. Pick something random and try and design it better. You're not going to make it. You're not even contemplating going out there and actually making a prototype or anything, but pick something, take things that you liked about it, take something you didn't like about it and try and improve it. Make a sketch, even if it's just all in your head, just an idea. And the more that you do that with all random things, you will start to hit on a pattern of your design style. And as you actually physically make things, you'll see that naturally progress as well. So you'll hit on a regular thing that you tend to do, that you tend to like, and that becomes your niche, that becomes your design cue. So next time somebody asks you to make something or you want to make something, it's pretty much there already because you've done it 100 times before.
Yeah. So maybe a good challenge for people could be, say, I think I put this out there a little while ago actually. Maybe a challenge could be, say, for argument's sake, maybe go to a thrift store or a charity shop or something like that. Go and buy something. I can't remember who actually did it. I think it was what's his name, David Picciuto. He goes to the thrift stores and charity shops. He goes and buys stuff and then repurposes them and makes them better. Maybe he'll get an old radio and he'll upgrade it to a Bluetooth radio. So he'll have like an old style radio, but it'll be Bluetooth. So he'll take out all the guts. So or whatever, So maybe you can go and get something for super cheap, or you can get some glasses and maybe put a wooden stem on them, So maybe you can go and do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would listen to Joe before I'd listen to me. Let's put it this way. but I mean, seriously, I would, because Joe's he's knowledgeable and he's logical. I always look at things differently, and it's like you said, Joe. It's like not that I ever intend to physically do it. I don't, but there are times when I will look at something as simple as a clock, and I will go, "How can I make that clock look cool?" And then you start sketching something, and you're looking at it, and you're going, "That would really look cool," but I'm not doing it. But I mean, but it's I start with the abs. Yeah, thank you, Jamie. I start with the abstract, and I work my way back to function. Because I mean, if it's really out there, and it's, like, I could design a clock that wouldn't stand up and it would look cool, but if it didn't stand up, then it wouldn't be cool. So you kind of have to start there and then bring it back to where you think where it will actually work, and that's kind of how I do it. I'll be honest with you, I'm not the most creative person in the world. I mean, mentally, it's kind of like Dale had mentioned in the chat earlier. He likes thinking before he likes making. I don't mind. I do a lot of thinking. I just don't do a lot of doing along those lines. And I don't know if that's normal or not normal. I perhaps not being formally trained or, knowing the discipline all that well. That's just kind of how I do things. That might change if I had more education, but who knows?
I think it's efficiency.
I'm sorry?
It's efficient to be able to think rather than actually make something. If you can do the design process, if you can do your wondering all in your mind without have to actually physically hunker down and make a prototype or go through iterations, it's efficient, and you can snap through ideas within a day.
But then there's always that idea that really kind of sparks it, and you go, oh, I got to give this a go. I have to try this, at least one. I have to give this a go. And then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just a matter of, we're not talking as professionals here, because professionals don't have that kind of leeway. They have to make money. I'm just trying to do something that's fun, and like goes back to what the person said. Aren't we all just trying to have fun? The answer is yeah. At least at my level. At my level, it is. And there are so many different types of design. And that leads us into the next question. I mean, especially when it comes to furniture, you can go from Queen Anne all the way through, the 1900s, 1920s, 1940s, the 50s, the 60s, and it seems like almost each decade has their own style, and some last, it seems like, almost forever as acceptable in a certain format. Because, I mean, let's be honest, if you live in a grass shack in the middle of the woods somewhere in South America, you're not going to want to put Queen Anne furniture in that. It just wouldn't look right. Okay, so I mean, there are ways to look at things and ways not to look at things. But some designs have endured over the ages. Let's just leave it at that. And some have seen their heyday and gone, and were replaced by the next what they would call fad. I mean, I know that steampunk used to be really popular. It still is, at least in my opinion, because I really dig the steampunk kind of look. But there's neoclassical, as Andy types. There's, oh my God, I hate this term. Because my wife watches those how-to shows on HGTV, and she hit me with this one day, and I went, just stop. Don't even say that word again. Then there's the mid-century modern. And I'm like, do you even know what that means? She was like, no, but I liked what they had. Oh my God, just leave it alone. And there's a lot of different types of design. Is there any kind of design particularly that you like? And I don't want to put you in a box. I'm just trying to say, is there one that kind of piques your interest more so than others? I guess and if that puts you in a box, I apologize. But Joe, what do you think? Or Jamie, go ahead.
When it comes to, I want to go for designs of, let's say, buildings and furniture. So there's only two times when I walk into a building situation that I'm kind of in awe, and that's when I walk into a workshop, and I'm kind of like, so this is what they're doing, and you kind of see their layouts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I walk into, and this is very much Berkey-esque, but when I walk into a church and you see the furniture and the structure of the building, and
that's a different kind of design. That's a Gothic design. Yes,
it's very much Gothic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the things that it's and I kind of get told off for this, like when I go to weddings and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm kind of Jamie face the front, and I'm kind of like looking up at the roof and looking at the wood, all the wood in the building and all that kind of stuff. It's very difficult for me to concentrate what else is going on when I'm staring.
Especially
at
when
the
it's
building.
your wedding.
Yeah.
Especially if it's your wedding.
Please face the
Yeah,
front.
when you're
I couldn't tell you what the inside of my church looked like when I got married. No. My focus was not on design that day. My focus was, oh my God, I hope I get through this.
Sober up, Chris. Sober up.
Well, no, I was completely sober when I got married. Thank you. Wayne the Wood Turner says, and Wayne, I'm going to disagree with you on this one a little bit, but not too much. He says every design has, but they still have the same basics. Height of the chair, height of the table, and I will go. I guess depending on what style of furniture you're looking at, that may be true, because Wayne, the basic height of a chair and the basic height of a table, perhaps, through Europe and America, is extremely different than what they have in Japan, where people actually sit down on the floor and the table is actually much smaller. So I don't think you're constricted by even those basics, my friend. It just depends on what suits your need when it comes to that. So I guess if you want to break this down, I really hate this, but everybody likes to put everything in a box. Everybody likes to put everything in a file and label the file and put it in there. And that's Japanese style. This is European, and I'm not a big fan of doing that with anything. But that's the kind of thing that you're looking at. But I mean, Joe, let me ask you again. Is there a design style that you particularly like? Not necessarily would ever do, but like?
I tend to change quite a lot. So my taste change almost with the season. So I'd say I like something new each year. But at the moment, I'm a big fan of industrial and like the more utilitarian style. So it's down to the brass tacks of what's its purpose, what's its function, what's the simplest way that we can get there. But also I like it when they highlight the materials that was used, the joinery or lack of joinery that was used. So I really like plywood furniture. Seeing the exposed edge on plywood, I think it looks great, but I think it's nice to be able to see, oh, that's plywood, rather than say, typical you'll go to a hotel room and it's like, all walnut furniture. Well, no, it's not walnut furniture. This is just vinyl that's stuck on the side of it. Why not embrace that it's MDF, just put a clear finish on it? Or I do like that style, and that tends to be what interests me most at the moment. But in a year's time, I could be the complete opposite, and I could go down the neoclassical or the mid-century modern.
Oh God, don't say. Next to you'll be talking about shiplap, and I'll have to shoot you.
Shabby chic. That's the next one.
Then whenever I do eventually get my next video out, because I already started, I'm halfway through this video. You'll appreciate my next video, especially with the plywood aspect of it, because it's a scrap wood video. And I kind of accentuated the fact that it was, anyway. I'm not going to get into it because at this rate, who knows when that will be coming out. I like, you know what? It really depends. Is there a style or a design that I like? It really depends on the room or the setting. If the setting, in my mind, I walk into a setting and if I'm in a cabin out in the woods, then I'm looking for log furniture. If I'm in a mansion, I'm looking for Queen Anne. If I'm in a very modern home, I'm looking for what Joe was talking about with the very simplest, clean design to it, and just it really depends. I mean, in my view, the design has to fit the setting, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I mean, I don't really have a favorite, other than the fact that I really do like steampunk. And there's an example of this, and I don't remember what show it was on, because he did, if I'm not incorrect, he's done 3 network television shows. Jimmy DeResta, I'm talking about, with his brother John. He did this thing. I don't know what show it is. Maybe somebody out there will know the title of it. But they used to go out. They used to make things during the week, and they'd go out at the flea market on the weekend, and they would sell everything okay, there you go. Trash to cash. Did you ever see the computer keyboard that Jimmy made off of an old typewriter that no longer worked?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think I've watched as many as I possibly could get my hands on.
that was freaking brilliant. It was very steampunk. It was very cool. I just thought that was brilliant. So that's the kind of stuff that I like personally myself. Would I ever do it? Probably not. But I mean, I do like it. All right. Final question, and then we've got 15 minutes to kill, which shouldn't be hard. Are there any YouTube makers that, I guess they're asking for suggestions on where people might turn to get inspiration? Are there any YouTube makers that you feel have a knack for design, or that and that design can be either for form or for function or for both? I mean, is there anybody, and you can each have as many examples as you would like, so feel free to pass them on. Joe?
For me, the biggest standout will always be Kyle Toth. And that's for his signature style of the carve through pattern that he'll apply to every project that he does. So he could be making a table and he'll use a really nice exotic wood, and then he'll cover it with a black veneer and then carve through that black veneer to reveal the wood underneath. I always remember it being a bit like when you'd be at school and you'd colour on all the different coloured wax crayons and then cover over the top in black and scratch through the black to reveal the colour underneath. But even without that, on his furniture or what he makes, I just think he's got a knack for design. The Tauruses that he turns on the lathe, and I get a lot of inspiration from seeing his videos. And I also want to shout out Mark Spagnolo as well, the Wood Whisperer. Even though he's a big fan of mid-century modern, I like the process that he goes into when designing furniture, and I like the fact that he will talk through why he does a certain thing or why he chose a certain angle, for example. So them two for me are the big ones.
And Mark, like we talked about, your design, like you said, Joe, your design kind of changes your favorite to kind of, because Mark back in the day was a big green on green design kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he's changed since then. He's moved into a different aspect. Jamie, what about you?
Says, I want to mention 4 people, I think. The first one is Dale Kirkwood for the scroll saw. The scroll saw patterns Dale does, they're not what you call intricate by any stretch of the imagination, but they are so effective.
Really
the stuff that he pulls out of the work is just incredible, mind blowing. They're simple cuts, effectively, and anyone can do them. But the pictures just come out are just totally incredible. Next, I want to say Frank Howarth. He'll be another good one to look out for. Now, if you haven't heard of Frank, where have you been? Another one that's out in the chat is I want to mention Sean Evely. I don't know if I've said your last name right, Sean.
Brilliant young man. Sean, we love you, man.
Sean. We had him on when he was, 16? I think we had him on the podcast.
Yeah, it was before he got out of high school or whatever you call it there in the UK.
Yeah, I think it was. Definitely go over and check out Sean's channel. He's doing some incredible stuff over there.
His bent lamination chair, that is just incredible.
Yeah, definitely go and check Sean's channel out. And obviously for wood turning, you can't go wrong with Cole Jacobson.
No, you really can't. And you got what? Jamie, that was 5. You said you had 4. Shut up.
That was 4.
Okay, if you say so. But you said and I went, no, stop. You guys have pretty much covered everybody that I would talk to. The only one that I think that's been left out, and it's not so much that the design, it's the method for me, and that would be Peter Brown, because he does some crazy stuff that is in a normal form. Do you follow me? And so it is design. It's classic in its design, but it's very not classic in its form. At the same time. Peter Brown, I enjoy the creativity of a lot of people, but I mean, you guys have covered a lot of the folks that I'm talking about, and we talked about this last week, Jamie. There's a lot of people out there that I would just like to spend a day in their shop while they're working, so that I could learn something. And you would, because I don't think if I spent a week in like Berkey's shop, I would pick up something, but I would not pick up everything. It would be like freaking information overload. Yeah, my brain would shut down at some point and go, "Where's the beer, Andy?" Because I need to catch up here. But yeah, there's a ton of people out there that are worth looking at. And who is it that make hands dirty? Christiane.
Christiana.
She's another
Yeah.
one. She does some pretty cool stuff too. So there's
Yeah.
all you need to do is look around, and I can't sit here and tell you, what's going to float your boat and what isn't. That's up to you. All I can do is say, explore around, look and see who's out there. And then if you find somebody who inspires you in that way, then follow them and watch what they do. You'll learn something.
Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Well, those are the end of the questions. I mean, Joe, this was your topic. Is there anything that you want to kind of go over that we haven't talked about yet?
I think I wanted to have a little bit of a quick shout out before we do the regular shout out stuff, because there was a show here in the UK that really stood out to me, and luckily it is on YouTube. And it was a kind of a competition show to do with product design, and I managed to find what it was called. It's called Design for Life, and the product designer behind it is Philippe Stark. Now, you may not have know the name, but you'll undoubtedly know his most famous piece, which was a lemon juicer. And the lemon juicer looks like a bit like an alien from War of the Worlds. It's like chrome, a bit of a dome, like a teardrop shape with legs sticking out. I don't agree with his attitude. I don't think he's that nice of a guy. But I like his outlook on product design. And he sets the people lots of different challenges. Someone gets knocked out each week. But the challenges that he sets are really interesting. And that kind of helps to change your thinking around products and way you look at stuff. So if you are looking for design cues and ways to improve what you do, go on YouTube and search that show, Design for Life. And I think you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I might rewatch it again, actually, but I just wanted to mention that.
Awesome. Jamie, what about from you?
Right, well, first of all, I've got to do Jamie's page.
Oh, God.
Chris never had his chance to take his headphones off.
Oh,
Snuck it in.
Actually, had to hear that this week. Oh, my God. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So, first of all, Andy Pugh has got a bit of payback coming to him during the week. Richard the Beard is going to be doing a invasion in Andy Pugh's workshop, and that is going to be Thursday at 8 p.m. over on Richard the Beard's YouTube channel, which is the Beard Time 16.
So Richard's invading the Tinkerage?
Yeah, he's invading the Tinkerage. He's
this should be worthwhile watching.
He's gonna give him a bit of a tinkle. So,
well, we didn't need to go there, but I mean,
8 p.m. On the Beard Time 16.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you. And now this is your page, and I don't want to jump in on Jamie's page, but I do.
Corner soon.
No, you're going to be sorry you said that when I say this. I want to say cheers to you, my friend, for cracking the 5K sub mark this week. Jamie reached over 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, so Jamie, congratulations.
Congrats, mate.
Thank you.
Now, are you still mad at me?
Nope.
Continue. Good for you, buddy. Good for you.
And on that, a little segue, actually, Chris, since you just said that. On that, on Monday, the 24th of August, I'm going to be doing a live stream on my channel, which is a Q&A at 8 o'clock UK time, or British Standard Time, which is basically just a Q&A and just information on how I'm going to be doing the 5K giveaway and things like that. Basically, I just need a video on my channel where I can do the giveaway, and yeah, just it's a video that I can basically have a random video to give out stuff, So, but I've got some great prizes over there. So, and that ends on August the 31st. So, yeah. Obviously, we've got the usual premieres. So I'm at 11 o'clock tonight. Caitlin's at 11:15. But my shout out this week goes to everybody that partaked in the virtual craft festival yesterday. So that goes to Scott the Blue Light Turner, Wayne the Wood Turner, Dale from Maple Tree Studios, Anarchist Costas, Heidi Jacobs, Martin Saban-Smith, Andy Hill from Age Bespoke, Cameron Porter, Scott Grove, Michael Early, Daryl Jones, Braxton Worthling, Zach Higgins, Roper from Roper's Woodturning, and of course my host of the most, Cole Jacobson.
Awesome.
So yeah. So also
Definitely.
Dale, I want to give him an extra thank you for being the webmaster for the stars.
Awesome.
So
Well, Joe, it's unusual for me to say this, but you're the guest. So you go next, brother. Who have you got? Because I know it kind of relates to this week's topic.
It does. I think it's a good fit, and the shout out is Jack or whatever. I'm sure you would have seen he's released the Kickstarter for the Kinetic Driver, and
yes.
he put out a video going through the prototyping process, which I find is interesting, and I think it's a good one to watch because I may be wrong, but I don't think that the Kinetic Driver is like a totally new invention. It comes down to how it looks and how it performs and the design behind it. So it's taking something that may have been done before, but actually making it your own and change it. You know what I mean? That kind of outlook on things. But he went through a process of using a 3D printer to prototype it. And he says like how it's basically changed how people can go about doing things. So how we spoke about doing things in our head, he's obviously able to, he knows how to do it, to 3D model in Fusion 360 and get the printer to print it for him. But he got like 13, 16 different stages of a prototype just so he could physically feel it in his hand, see what it feels like. And it got me thinking, because I've never prototyped something before I actually make the real thing. I just make the real thing. So it's made me take a stop and think, well, actually, I might make some scrap ones first, see how it actually feels, see the sizes and right, everything, before I commit to make the big one and then think, oh, I wish I'd have done this or wish I'd have done that. So it's worth a watch, Jack or whatever.
Absolutely.
Good
And Joe,
call.
by the way, it's absolutely worthwhile to use your scraps to prototype stuff. Just because if you screw it up, you don't care. You know, it's that's fine. It beats screwing up a piece of, expensive walnut. My shout out this week, gentlemen, is going to be, and I hate to repeat Jamie's, but it's the exact same as Jamie's. Everybody who took part in the virtual craft fair that took place this Saturday. By the way, all of the links to the shout outs today are down in the description if anybody's interested to check out anybody individually. But all of the links to them, the people that took part in the craft fair, and what they did during that craft fair are below. It was a fun day to watch, and Jamie, I hope you and Carl put together another one sometime soon.
Yes, as soon as Carl went off air yesterday, we jumped straight into a hangout and started organising next month's.
Awesome.
Nice one.
So hopefully we can keep this going because that was a fun day to watch. I mean, some things interested me more than others, but it was still cool to see the community get together and do, because it was like 16 straight hours of a craft fair that you could tune in and tune out of at your leisure. So it was really cool. So my hats off.
You loved the scroll saw, didn't you?
No, I didn't know. I didn't watch that. I never watched it. That's when I had to go take a nap, I think. And well, it did help me take a nap, but put me to sleep. Anyway, I don't want to go there. Anyway, we're out of time, boys. So, Joe, thank you for joining us. This was a cool discussion, and hopefully, I hope it was for food for thought for people that are still out there wondering, what the hell they're going to do next. I mean, it's like, what? I think the bottom line of this is decide what you like. Decide what you like, and then give it a go.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Right. So I guess on that note, we'll quickly say hello to everybody out in the chat before we say goodbye to everybody in the chat. So we've got Paul Wilmore from Create to Make. We've got Ian in the Shed. We've got the Beard Time 16. Mark the Gentleman Wood Turner. We've got Jurassic Wood Mark. He's out in the chat.
Mr. Christopher.
Mark the Gentleman Wood Turner. Andy Pugh's out there. Let's keep going. Scott the Blue Light Turner. Emma the Dragon's out there. Chris of the Dragons is out there. Dale the Maple Tree Studios. Let's keep going up a little bit more. Mike's out there. Did I say Dale's out there? If I didn't, he is.
And Sean's ears were burning because he's out there too.
Yeah, and Barry Oak. So on that note, thanks to everybody that's tuned in. If you weren't, Sean's out there as well. Thanks to everyone that was out there. If you weren't, I guess you'll be listening to this on SoundCloud. So until next week, everybody, which I believe is our 200th episode. Is it not, Chris?
No, week after.
Week after. All right. Until next week, anyway. We'll see you then. So
right.
take it easy, everybody.
Cheers, everybody. Have a great week.
Ta-ra a bit.
See you.